Welcome to our channel. Hollywood Movie Review. Money Heist 2017 Movie Review. Money Heist, Spanish, La Casa de Papel, La Casa y Papel, lit. The House of Paper, is a Spanish heist crime drama television series created by Álex Pina. The series traces two long-prepared heists led by the professor, Álvaro Morte, one on the Royal Mint of Spain, and one on the Bank of Spain, told from the perspective of one of the robbers, Tokyo, Úrsula Corberó. The story is told in a real-time-like fashion and relies on an unreliable narrator, flashbacks, time jumps, and hidden character motivations for complexity. The series was initially intended as a two-part limited series. It had its original run of 15 episodes on Spanish network Antena 3 from May 2, 2017 through November 23, 2017. Netflix acquired global streaming rights in late 2017. It recut the series into 22 shorter episodes and released them worldwide, beginning with the first part on December 20, 2017, followed by the second part on April 6, 2018. In April 2018, Netflix renewed the series with a significantly increased budget for 16 new episodes total. Part 3, with 8 episodes, was released on July 19, 2019. Part 4, also with 8 episodes, was released on April 3, 2020. A documentary involving the producers and the cast premiered on Netflix the same day, titled Money Heist, The Phenomenon, Spanish, La Casa de Papel, El Fenomeno. In July 2020, Netflix renewed the show for a fifth and final part, which was released in two 5-episode volumes on September 3 and December 3, 2021, respectively. Similar to Money Heist, The Phenomenon, a two-part documentary involving the producers and cast premiered on Netflix the same day, titled Money Heist, From Tokyo to Berlin. The series was filmed in Madrid, Spain. Significant portions were also filmed in Panama, Thailand, Italy, Florence, Denmark, and in Portugal, Lisbon. A South Korean remake set in an alternate universe, Money Heist, Korea, Joint Economic Area, was released in two parts on June 24 and December 9, 2022 respectively, while a direct spin-off, Berlin, with Pedro Alonso, Itziar Ituno, and Najwa Nimri reprising their roles, was released on December 29, 2023, forming a shared universe. The series received several awards including the International Emmy Award for Best Drama Series at the 46th International Emmy Awards, as well as critical acclaim for its sophisticated plot, interpersonal dramas, direction, and for trying to innovate Spanish television. The Italian anti-fascist song Bella Ciao, which plays multiple times throughout the series, became a summer hit across Europe in 2018. By that year, the series was the most watched non-English language series and one of the most watched series overall on Netflix, having particular resonance with viewers from Mediterranean Europe and the Latin American regions. Set in Madrid, a mysterious man known as the Professor recruits a group of 8 people, who choose city names as their aliases for anonymity, to carry out an ambitious plan that involves entering the Royal Mint of Spain, and escaping with 984 million euros. After taking 67 people hostage inside the mint, the team plans to remain inside for 11 days to print the money as they deal with elite police forces. In the events following the initial heist, the group members are forced out of hiding and prepare for a second heist, with some additional members, this time aiming to escape with gold from the Bank of Spain and rescuing an old friend and member of the heist, as they again deal with hostages and police forces. The series was conceived by screenwriter Álex Pina and director Jesus Comener during their years of collaboration since 2008. After finishing their work on the Spanish prison drama Locked Up, Vis a Vis, they left Globo Media to set up their own production company, named Vancouver Media, in 2016. For their first project, they considered either filming a comedy or developing a heist story for television, with the latter having never been attempted before on Spanish television. Along with former Locked Up colleagues, they developed Money Heist as a passion project to try new things without outside interference. Pina was firm about making it a limited series, feeling that dilution had become a problem for his previous productions. Initially entitled Los Desahuciados, The Evicted, in the conception phase, the series was developed to subvert heist conventions and combine elements of the action genre, thrillers, and surrealism, while still being credible. Pina saw an advantage over typical heist films in that character development could span a considerably longer narrative story arc. Characters were to be shown from multiple sides to break the viewer's preconceptions of villainy and retain their interest throughout the show. Key aspects of the planned storyline were written down at the beginning, while the finer story beats were developed incrementally to not overwhelm the writers. Writer Javier Gomez Santander compared the writing process to the professor's way of thinking, going around, writing down options, consulting engineers whom you cannot tell why you ask them that, but noted that fiction allowed the police to be written dumber when necessary. The beginning of filming was set for January 2017, allowing for 5 months of pre-production. The narrative was split into 2 parts for financial considerations. The robbers' city-based code names, which Spanish newspaper ABC compared to the color-based code names in Quentin Tarantino's 1992 heist film Reservoir Dogs, were chosen at random in the first part, although places with high viewership resonance were also taken into account for the new robbers' code names in Part 3. The first 5 lines of the pilot script took a month to write, as the writers were unable to make the professor or Moscow work as the narrator. Ultimately, Tokyo was chosen as the narrator. Flashbacks and time jumps increased the narrative complexity and made the story more fluid for the audience. The pilot episode required over 50 script versions until the producers were satisfied. Later scripts would be finished once per week to keep up with filming. Casting took place late in February 2016, spanning more than 2 months. The characters were not fully fleshed out at the beginning of this process, and took shape based on the actors' performances. Casting directors Eva Lyra and Yolanda Serrano were looking for actors with the ability to play empathetic robbers with believable love and family connections. Antena 3 announced the ensemble cast in March 2017 and released audition excerpts of most cast actors in the series after show Tercer Grado and on their website. The professor was designed as a charismatic yet shy villain who could convince the robbers to follow him and make the audience sympathetic to the robbers' resistance against the powerful banks. However, developing the professor's role proved difficult, as the character did not follow archetypal conventions and the producers were uncertain about his degree of brilliance. While the producers found his salva personality early on, they were originally looking for a 50-year-old Harvard professor type with the looks of Spanish actor José Coronado. The role was proposed to Javier Gutiérrez, but he was already committed to starring in the film Campeones. Meanwhile, the casting directors advocated for Álvaro Morte, whom they knew from their collaboration on the long-running Spanish soap opera El Secreto de Puente Viejo, even though his prime-time television experience was limited at that point. Going through the full casting process and approaching the role through external analysis rather than personal experience, Morte described the professor as a tremendous box of surprises that end up shaping this character because he never ceases to generate uncertainty, making it unclear for the audience if the character is good or bad. The producers also found that his appearance of a primary school teacher gave the character more credibility. Pedro Alonso was cast to play Berlin, whom La Voz de Galicia would later characterize as a cold, hypnotic, sophisticated, and disturbing character, an inveterate macho with serious empathy problems, a white-collar thief who despises his colleagues and considers them inferior. The actor's portrayal of the character was inspired by a chance encounter Alonso had the day before receiving his audition script, with an intelligent person who was provocative or even manipulative to him. Alonso saw high observation skills and an unusual understanding of his surroundings in Berlin, resulting in unconventional and unpredictable character behavior. Similarities between Berlin and Najwa Nimri's character Zulema in Pina's TV series Locked Up were unintentional. The family connection between the professor and Berlin was not in the original script, but was built into the character's backstory at the end of part 1 after Mort and Alonso had repeatedly proposed to do so. The producers found the protagonist and narrator, Tokyo, among the hardest characters to develop, as they were originally looking for an older actress to play the character who had nothing to lose before meeting the professor. Úrsula Corberó eventually landed the role for bringing a playful energy to the table. Her voice was heavily factored in during casting, as she was the first voice the audience hears in the show. Jamie Lorente developed Denver's hallmark laughter during the casting process. 2 cast actors had appeared in previous TV series by Álex. Pina, Paco 2, Moscow, had starred in the 2005 TV series Los Hombres de Paco, and Alba Flores, Nairobi, had starred in Locked Up. Flores was asked to play Nairobi without audition when Pina realized late in the conception phase that the show needed another female gang member. For the role opposite to the robbers, Itziar Ituno was cast to play Inspector Raquel Murillo, whom Ituno described as a strong and powerful woman in a world of men, but also sensitive in her private life. She took inspiration from the Silence of the Lambs character Clarice Starling, an FBI student with a messy family life who develops sympathies for a criminal. The actors learned of the show's renewal by Netflix before the producers contacted them to return. In October 2018, Netflix announced the cast of Part 3. The returning main cast included Pedro Alonso, raising speculation about his role in Part 3. Among the new cast members were Argentine actor Rodrigo de la Serna, who saw a possible connection between his character's name and the Argentine football legend Martín Palermo, and Locked Up star Najwa Nimri. Cameo appearance scenes of Brazilian football star, and fan of the series, Neymar, as a monk were filmed for Part 3, but were excluded from the stream without repercussions to the narrative until judicial charges against him had been dropped in late August 2019. A small appearance by Spanish actress Belén Cuesta in 2 episodes of Part 3 raised fan and media speculation about her role in Part 4. The show's look and atmosphere were developed by creator Álex Pina, director Jesus Comener, and director of photography Miguel Moito, according to La Vanguardia, the most prolific television trio in recent years. Abdon Alkanai served as art director. Their collaboration projects usually take a primary color as a basis. Money Heist had red as one of the distinguishing features of the series that stood over the gray sets. Blue, green, and yellow were marked as a forbidden color in production design. To achieve absolute film quality, red tones were tested with different types of fabrics, textures, and lighting. The iconography of the robbers' red jumpsuits mirrored the yellow prison dress code in Locked Up. For Part 3, the Italian retail clothing company Diesel modified the red jumpsuits to better fit the body and launched a clothing line inspired by the series. Salvador Dali was chosen as the robber's mask design because of Dali's recognizable visage that also serves as an iconic cultural reference to Spain. Don Quixote as an alternative mask design was discarded. This choice sparked criticism by the Gala Salvador Dali Foundation for not requesting the necessary permissions. To make the plot more realistic, the producers requested and received advice from the National Police, Civil Guard, and the Spanish Ministry of Interior. The robbers' banknotes were printed with permission of the Bank of Spain and had an increased size as an anti-counterfeit measure. The greater financial backing of Netflix for Part 3 allowed for the build of over 50 sets across 5 basic filming locations worldwide. Preparing a remote and uninhabited island in Panama to represent a robber hideout proved difficult, as it needed to be cleaned, secured, and built on, and involved hours-long traveling with material transportation. The real Bank of Spain was unavailable for visiting and filming for security reasons, so the producers recreated the bank on a 2-level stage by their own imagining, taking inspiration from Spanish architecture of the Francisco Franco era. Publicly available information was used to make the bank's main hall set similar to the real location. The other interior sets were inspired by different periods and artificially aged to accentuate the building's history. Bronze and granite sculptures and motifs from the Valle de los Caídos were recreated for the interior, and over 50 paintings were painted for the bank to emulate the Ateneo de Madrid. Parts 1 and 2 were filmed back-to-back in the Greater Madrid region from January until August 2017. The pilot episode was recorded in 26 days, while all other episodes had around 14 filming days. Production was split into 2 units to save time, with one unit shooting scenes involving the professor and the police, and the other filming scenes with the robbers. The main storyline is set in the Royal Mint of Spain in Madrid, but the exterior scenes were filmed at the Spanish National Research Council, CSIC, headquarters for its passing resemblance to the Mint, and on the roof of the Higher Technical School of Aeronautical Engineers, part of the Technical University of Madrid. The hunting estate where the robbers planned their coup was filmed at the Finca El Gasco farm estate in Torrelodones. Interior filming took place at the former locked-up sets in Comener Vallejón at the Spanish national daily newspaper ABC in Torrejón de Ardoz for printing press scenes. As the show was designed as a limited series, all sets were destroyed once production of Part 2 had finished. Parts 3 and 4 were also filmed back-to-back with 21 to 23 filming days per episode. Netflix announced the start of filming on October 25, 2018, and filming of Part 4 ended in August 2019. In 2018, Netflix had opened its first European production hub in Tres Cantos near Madrid for new and existing Netflix productions. Main filming moved there onto a set 3 times the size of the set used for Parts 1 and 2. The main storyline is set in the Bank of Spain in Madrid, but the exterior was filmed at the Ministry of Development Complex Nuevos Ministerios. A scene where money is dropped from the sky was filmed at Callao Square. Ermita de San Frutos in Carrascal del Rio served as the exterior of the Italian monastery where the robbers planned the heist. The motorhome scenes of the professor and Lisbon were filmed at the deserted Las Salinas beaches in Almeria to make the audience feel that the characters are safe from the police, although their exact location is undisclosed at first. Underwater scenes inside the vault were filmed at Pinewood Studios in the United Kingdom. The beginning of Part 3 was also filmed in Thailand, on the Gunayala Islands in Panama, and in Florence, Italy, which helped to counter the claustrophobic feeling of the first 2 parts, but was also an expression of the plot's global repercussions. Filming for the 5th and final season concluded on May 14, 2021. The series theme song, My Life Is Going On, was composed by Manuel Santisteban, who also served as composer on Locked Up. Santisteban approached Spanish singer, Cecilia Krull, to write and perform the lyrics, which are about having confidence in one's abilities and the future. The theme song is played behind a title sequence featuring paper models of major settings from the series. Krull's main source of inspiration was the character Tokyo in the first episode of the series. When the professor offers her a way out of a desperate moment, the lyrics are in English as the language that came naturally to Krull at the time of writing. The Italian anti-fascist song Bella Ciao plays multiple times throughout the series and accompanies 2 emblematic key scenes. At the end of the first part, the professor and Berlin sing it in preparation for the heist, embracing themselves as resistance against the establishment, and in the second part it plays during the thieves' escape from the Mint, as a metaphor for freedom. Regarding the use of the song, Tokyo recounts in one of her narrations, the life of the professor revolved around a single idea: resistance. His grandfather, who had fought against the fascists in Italy, taught him the song, and he taught us. The song was brought to the show by writer Javier Gomez Santander. He had listened to Bella Ciao at home to cheer him up, as he had grown frustrated for not finding a suitable song for the middle of Part 1. He was aware of the song's meaning and history and felt it represented positive values. Bella Ciao became a summer hit in Europe in 2018, mostly due to the popularity of the series and not the song's grave themes. Part 1 begins with the aftermath of a failed bank robbery by a woman using the alias Tokyo as a man called the Professor saves her from being caught by the police. He proposes to include her in a heist of massive proportions. After a brief outline of the plan, the story jumps to the beginning of a multi-day assault on the Royal Mint of Spain in Madrid. The 8 robbers are code-named for cities: Tokyo, Moscow, Berlin, Nairobi, Rio, Denver, Helsinki, and Oslo. Dressed in red jumpsuits and masks depicting artist Salvador Dali, the robbers take 67 hostages as part of their plan to print and escape with €2.4 billion through a self-built escape tunnel. The professor heads the heist from an external location. Flashbacks throughout the series show the 5 months of preparation at an abandoned hunting estate in the Toledo countryside. The robbers are not to share personal information nor engage in personal relationships, and are warned that there will be casualties. Throughout parts 1 and 2, the robbers inside the mint have difficulties sticking to their roles and face uncooperative hostages, violence, isolation, and mutiny. Tokyo narrates events through voiceovers. While Denver pursues a love affair with hostage Monica Gustumbud, Inspector Raquel Murillo of the National Police Corps negotiates with the professor on the outside and begins an intimate relationship with his alter ego Salva. The professor's identity is repeatedly close to being uncovered, and Raquel eventually realizes Salva is the professor, but she is emotionally unable to hand him over to the police. At the end of part 2, after 128 hours, the robbers escape from the mint with €984 million, but Oslo, Moscow, and Berlin are killed. 1 year after the heist, Raquel finds a series of postcards left by the professor, who wrote the coordinates for a location in Palawan in the Philippines, where she reunites with him and the story comes to a conclusion. Part 3 begins 3 years after the heist on the Royal Mint of Spain, and restarts the story showing the robbers enjoying their lives paired up in diverse locations. However, when Europol captures Rio with an intercepted phone, the professor picks up Berlin's old plans to assault the Bank of Spain to force Europol to hand over Rio to prevent his torture. He and Raquel, going by Lisbon, get the gang, including Monica, going by Stockholm, back together, and enlist 3 new members: Palermo, Bogota, and Marseille, with Palermo in charge. Flashbacks to the professor and Berlin outline the planned new heist and their different approaches to love. The disguised robbers sneak into the heavily guarded bank, take hostages, and eventually gain access to the gold and state secrets. At the same time, the professor and Lisbon travel in an RV and then an ambulance while communicating with the robbers and the police. The robbers thwart a police breach of the bank, forcing the police, led by Colonel Luis Tamayo and pregnant Inspector Alicia Sierra, to release Rio to the robbers. Nairobi is injured by a police sniper's shot to the chest. With another police assault on the bank coming, and believing Lisbon has been executed by the police, the professor radios Palermo and declares DEFCON 2. The robbers respond by firing a rocket at the armored police vehicle that is advancing on the bank, turning the robbers from folk heroes to killers in the eyes of the public. Part 3 concludes by showing Lisbon alive and in custody, and Tokyo narrating that the professor had fallen for a trap. She concludes that because of the professor's miscalculation, the war had begun. Part 4 begins with the robbers rushing to save Nairobi's life. While Tokyo stages a coup d'état and takes over command from Palermo, the professor and Marseille deduce that Lisbon must still be alive and being interrogated by Sierra in the police command post tent outside the bank. They persuade Tamayo's assistant, Antonenses, to help them so the professor can establish a 48-hour truce with the police. As the group manages to save Nairobi's life, the restrained Palermo attempts to reassert command by colluding with Gandia, the restrained chief of security for the Bank of Spain. Gandia escapes, begins communications with the police from within a panic room inside the bank, and participates in a violent cat-and-mouse game with the gang. Palermo reverses course, regains the trust of the group, and rejoins them. Gandia shoots Nairobi in the head, killing her instantly, but the gang later recapture him. As the police prepare another assault on the bank, the professor exposes to the public the unlawful torture of Rio and Lisbon's detention and interrogation. Sierra is fired and begins pursuing the professor on her own. The professor enlists external help to free Lisbon after she is transferred from the command post tent to the Supreme Court building. Part 4 concludes with Lisbon rejoining the gang inside the bank, and with Sierra finding the professor's hideout, then holding him at gunpoint. Part 5 Volume 1 begins with Sierra finding the professor and knocking him out, then tying him up and interrogating him. After Lisbon enters the bank, the gang prepares for an attack by troops of the Spanish army. The gang captures Gandia, then frees him rather than killing him. Gandia wants to exact revenge on the gang, so Tamayo has him join the assault by the soldiers. After finding out the professor has been caught but that Sierra has not notified the police, Lisbon tells the gang they will not give up. Benjamin and Marseille find the professor, and Sierra knocks them out and ties them up. When Sierra struggles to deliver her baby, she frees the professor, Marseille, and Benjamin so they can help. Sierra gives birth to a daughter, whom she names Victoria. Arturo Roman, a hostage in both the Royal Mint and the Bank of Spain, had an affair with Stockholm before the first heist, and Arturo's reminders anger Denver. When Arturo, the governor of the bank, and other hostages start a rebellion, Stockholm shoots Arturo, who is released so he can receive medical care. In a flashback, Berlin convinces his son Rafael to help him steal 12 kilograms of gold with Tatiana, Bogota, and Marseille. In the present, the gang starts fighting the soldiers, with Helsinki sustaining a severe injury. Stockholm feels guilt over shooting Arturo, who is her son's birth father, and takes morphine while nursing Helsinki, which leaves her unable to aid in the gang's defense against the attacking soldiers. Part 5 Volume 1 concludes with Tokyo sacrificing herself to defeat Gandia and the soldiers. In Part 5 Volume 2, Sierra runs away and the professor and Marseille chase after her. Initially enemies, the professor and Sierra soon become allies as they face their common enemy, the police. When they go back to the stormwater tank, they see the gold has already been delivered to them by the gang. However, the police find the stormwater tank and arrests the professor, Sierra, Benjamin, and Marseille. They escape, but find the gold missing. It is revealed that the gold is stolen by Rafael and Tatiana because she broke up with Berlin in the past to be with Rafael. In the present, Tatiana and Rafael bury the gold. Palermo and the professor discover that it is their doing, but at this time, the army captured the gang. The professor gives Sierra a note for Rafael, and convinces her to find the gold as that is their only hope while he drives to the bank. When he enters the bank, Tamayo taunts him and interrogates each gang member separately. Denver goes first, but does not reveal anything and is escorted to the police tent. The gang reveals to the public the gold has already been removed from the bank, leading to public panic and an economic meltdown, putting Spain in danger of bankruptcy. Sierra is able to locate the stolen gold. Outside the bank, the gold has arrived in trucks, but the professor says it is gold-coated brass. The gang members are killed on Tamayo's orders, shocking Denver in the tent. They are taken out of the bank in body bags, and it is revealed they are alive as the professor convinced Tamayo to stop the chase. The return of the gold has stabilized the country's economy. 24 hours after the heist, the gang reunite at an air base. Everyone receives new passports as Rafael and Tatiana return the gold to the gang with a promise that they will receive a share. The gang leaves the air base, having successfully robbed the Bank of Spain. The series was noted for its subversions of the heist genre. While heist films are usually told with a rational male Anglo-centric focus, the series reframes the heist story by giving it a strong Spanish identity and telling it from a female perspective through Tokyo. The producers regarded the cultural identity as an important part of the personality of the series, as it made the story more relatable for viewers. They also avoided adapting the series to international tastes, which helped to set it apart from the usual American TV series and raised international awareness of Spanish sensibilities. Emotional dynamics like the passion and impulsivity of friendship and love offset the perfect strategic crime for increased tension. Nearly all main characters, including the relationship-opposing professor, eventually succumb to love, for which the series received comparisons to telenovelas. Comedic elements, which were compared to Back to the Future and black comedy, also offset the heist tension. The heist film formula is subverted by the heist starting straight after the opening credits instead of lingering on how the gang is brought together. With the series being set after the 2008 financial crisis, which resulted in severe austerity measures in Spain, critics argued that the series was an explicit allegory of rebellion against capitalism, including the Globe and Mail, who saw the series as subversive in that it's about a heist for the people. It's revenge against a government. According to Le Monde, the professor's teaching scenes in the Toledo hunting estate, in particular, highlighted how people should seek to develop their own solutions for the fallible capitalist system. The show's Robin Hood analogy of robbing the rich and giving to the poor received various interpretations. El Español argued that the analogy made it easier for viewers to connect with the show, as modern society tended to be tired of banks and politics already, and the New Statesman said the rich were no longer stolen from but undermined at their roots. On the other hand, Esquire's Myria Muller saw the Robin Hood analogy as a mere distraction strategy for the robbers, as they initially did not plan to use the money from their first heist to improve the quality of life of regular people. For this reason, Muller also argues that the large following for the robbers in Part 3 was not understandable even though they represented a channel for the discontent of those bearing economic and political injustices. The characters were designed as multidimensional and complementary antagonists and antiheroes whose moralities are ever-changing. Examples include Berlin, who shifts from a robber mistreating hostages, to one of the series' most beloved characters. There is also the hostage Monica Gastumbad, as well as Inspector Raquel Murillo, who eventually join the cause of the robbers. Gonzalve of the Huffington Post finds that an audience may think of the robbers as evil at first for committing a crime, but as the series progresses it marks the financial system as the true evil and suggests the robbers have ethical and empathetic justification for stealing from an overpowered thief. 70 Najwa Nimri, playing Inspector Sierra in Part 3, said that the complex thing about a villain is giving him humanity. That's where everyone gets alarmed when you have to prove that a villain also has a heart. She added that the amount of information and technology that surrounds us is allowing us to verify that everyone has a dark side. The series leaves it to the audience to decide who is good or bad, as characters are relatable and immoral at various points in the story. Pina argued that it was this ability to change the view that made the series addictive and marked its success. With the relative number of female main characters in TV shows generally on the rise, the series gives female characters the same attention as men, which the BBC regarded as an innovation for Spanish television. While many plot lines in the heist series still relate to males, the female characters become increasingly aware of gender-related issues, such as Monica arguing in Part 3 that women, just like men, could be robbers and a good parent. Critics further examined feminist themes and a rejection of machismo in the series through Nairobi and her phrase "the matriarchy begins" in Part 2 and a comparative scene in Part 3, where Palermo claims a patriarchy in a moment that, according to CNET, is played for laughs. La Vanguardia challenged any female empowering claims in the series, as Úrsula Corberó, Tokyo, was often shown scantily clad, and Esquire criticized how characters' relationship problems in Part 3 were often portrayed to be the women's fault. 69 Alba Flores, Nairobi, saw no inherent feminist plot in the series, as women only take control when it suits the story, whilst Esther Acebo, Monica, described any feminist subtext in the show as not being vindicative. Part 1 aired on free-to-air Spanish TV channel Antena 3 in the Wednesday 10:40 p.m. time slot from May 2, 2017 till June 27, 2017. Part 2 moved to the Monday 10:40 p.m. time slot and was broadcast from October 16, 2017 till November 23, 2017. With the originally planned 18 to 21 episodes cut down to 15. As the series was developed with Spanish primetime television in mind, the episodes had a length of around 70 minutes, as is typical for Spanish television. The first 5 episodes of Part 1 were followed by an after-show entitled Tercer Grado, Third Grade. Despite boycott calls after its air, Raquel Murillo, had protested against the accommodations of ETA prisoners of her home Basque country in March 2016. The show had the best premiere of a Spanish series since April 2015 with more than 4 million viewers and the majority share of viewers in its time slot, almost double the number of the next highest viewed station/show. The show received good reviews and remained a leader in the commercial target group for the first half of Part 1, but the viewership eventually slipped to lower figures than expected by the Antena 3 executives. Argentine newspaper La Nación attributed the decrease in viewer numbers to the change in time slots, the late broadcast times and the summer break between the parts. Pina saw the commercial breaks as responsible, as they disrupted the narrative flow of the series that otherwise played almost in real time, even though the breaks were factored in during writing. La Vanguardia saw the interest waning only among the conventional audience, as the plot unfolded too slowly at the rate of one episode per week. Writer Javier Gómez Santander regarded the series run on Antena 3 as a failure in 2019, as the ratings declined to nothing special, but commended Antena 3 for making a series that did not rely on typical standalone episodes. Part 1 was made available on Netflix Spain on July 1, 2017, like other series belonging to Antena 3's parent media group Atresmedia. In December 2017, Netflix acquired the exclusive global streaming rights for the series. Netflix recut the series into 22 episodes of around 50 minutes length. Cliffhangers and scenes had to be divided and moved to other episodes, but this proved less drastic than expected because of the series' perpetual plot twists. Netflix dubbed the series and renamed it from La Casa de Papel to Money Heist for distribution in the English-speaking world, releasing the first part on December 20, 2017 without any promotion. The second part was made available for streaming on April 6, 2018. Pina assessed the viewer experience on Antena 3 versus Netflix as very different, although the essence of the series remained the same. Without a dedicated Netflix marketing campaign, the series became the most watched non-English language series on Netflix in early 2018, within 4 months of being added to the platform, to the creator's surprise. In April, it surpassed Stranger Things streams in the US and worldwide. Its success prompted Netflix to sign a global exclusive overall deal with Pina shortly afterwards. Diego Avalos, director of original content for Netflix in Europe, noted that the series was atypical in being watched across many different profile groups. Common explanations for the drastic differences in viewership between Antena 3 and Netflix were changed consumption habits of series viewers and the binge-watching potential of streaming. Some people in Spain also only became aware of the series from Netflix, unaware of its original Antena 3 broadcast. Pina and Sonia Martinez of Antena 3 would also later say that the series, with its high demand of viewer attention, unknowingly followed the video-on-demand format from the beginning. In October 2017, Álex Pina said that Part 2 had remote but intentional spin-off possibilities, and that his team was open to continue the robbers' story in the form of movies or a Netflix renewal. Following the show's success on the streaming platform, Netflix approached Pina and Atresmedia to produce new chapters for the originally self-contained story. The writers withdrew themselves for more than 2 months to decide on a direction, creating a Bible with central ideas for new episodes in the process. The crucial factors in accepting Netflix's deal were the creators recognizing that characters still had things to say, and having the opportunity to deviate from the perfectly orchestrated heist of the first 2 parts. Adamant that the story should be set in Spain again, the producers wanted to make it a sequel rather than a direct continuation, and expand on the familiarity and affection between the characters instead of the former group of strangers. Rio's capture was chosen as the catalyst to get the gang back together because he, as the narrator's boyfriend, represented the necessary emotional factor for the renewal not to be suicide. Netflix officially renewed the series for the third part with a considerably increased budget on 18 April 2018, which might make Part 3 the most expensive series per episode in Spanish television history, according to Variety. As writing was in progress, Pina stated in July 2018 that he appreciated Netflix's decision to make the episodes 45 to 50 minutes of length, as the narrative could be more compressed and international viewers would have more freedom to consume the story in smaller parts. With Netflix's new push to improve the quality and appeal of its English-language versions of foreign shows, and over 70% of viewers in the United States choosing dubs over subtitles for the series, Netflix hired a new dubbing crew for Part 3 and redubbed the first 2 parts accordingly. Part 3, consisting of 8 episodes, was released on July 19, 2019. The first 2 episodes of Part 3 also had a limited theatrical release in Spain one day before. In August 2019, Netflix announced that Part 3 was streamed by 34 million household accounts within its first week of release, of which 24 million finished the series within this period, thereby making it one of the most watched productions on Netflix of all time, regardless of language. The viewership of Part 3 increased, when Netflix reported that Part 3 was viewed 44 million households during its first month and became the most popular show on Netflix during the third quarter. Netflix had an estimated 148 million subscribers worldwide in mid-2019. In October 2019, Netflix ranked Money Heist as their third most watched TV series for the past 12 months, and named it as the most watched series across several European markets in 2019, including France, Spain and Italy, though not the UK. Twitter ranked the show fourth in its top TV shows worldwide of 2019. Filming of an initially unannounced fourth part of 8 episodes ended in August 2019. Álex, Pina and writer Javier Gomez Santander stated that unlike Part 3, where the intention was to re-attract the audience with high-energy drama after the move to Netflix, the story of Part 4 would unfold slower and be more character-driven. At another occasion, Pina and executive producer Esther Martinez Lobato teased Part 4 as the most dramatic part of all because this much tension has to explode somewhere. Alba Flores, Nairobi, said the script writers had previously made many concessions to fans in Part 3, but would go against audience wishes in Part 4 and that anyone who loves Nairobi will suffer. According to Pedro Alonso, Berlin, the focus of Part 4 would be on saving Nairobi's life and standing by each other to survive. Part 4 was released on April 3, 2020, a documentary involving the producers and the cast premiered on Netflix the same day, titled Money Heist, The Phenomenon. Part 4 broke numerous viewership records for a non-English Netflix series, attracting 65 million of households during its first 4 weeks, and went to become the most watched non-English series at the time. In November 2019, La Vanguardia quoted director Jesus Comener's statement that there is going to be a 5th part can be said, and that the new part would be filmed after Vancouver Media's new project Sky Rojo. Comener also stated that there have been discussions with Netflix about creating a spin-off of the series, as well as Pina. On July 31, 2020, Netflix renewed the show for a 5th and final part. On May 24, 2021, it was announced that the 5th part of the show would be released in 2 5-episode volumes on September 3 and December 3, respectively. Similar to Money Heist, The Phenomenon, a 2-part documentary involving the producers and cast premiered on Netflix the same day, titled Money Heist, From Tokyo to Berlin. In February 2024, The Wrap reported that Parts 3, 4, and 5 rank on Netflix's most popular non-English TV list, and Part 4 was in second place as the most watched installment of the series, with 106 million views at the time. The series, beginning on Antena 3, was received well by Spanish media. Nain Costas of El Confidencial named the premiere a promising start that captivated viewers with adrenaline, well-dosed touches of humor and a lot of tension, but considered it a challenge to maintain the dramatic tension for the remainder of the series. While considering the pilot's voice-over narration unnecessary and the sound editing and dialogues lacking, Natalia Marcos of El País enjoyed the show's ensemble cast and the ambition, saying it is daring, brazen, and entertaining, at least when it starts. Now we want more, which is not little. Reviewing the full first part, Marcos lauded the series for its outstanding direction, the musical selection and for trying to innovate Spanish television, but criticized the length and ebbing tension. At the end of the series' original run, Nayan Costas of El Confidencial commended the series for its high-quality closure that may make the finale one of the best episodes of the Spanish season, but regretted that it aimed to satisfy viewers with a predictable happy ending rather than risk to do something different, original, ambitious, and that the show was unable to follow in the footsteps of Pina's Locked Up. After the show's move to Netflix for its international release, Adrian Hennigan of the Israeli Haaretz said the series was more of a twisty thriller than soapy telenovela, driven by its ingenious plot, engaging characters, tense flashpoints, pulsating score, and occasional moments of humor, but taunted the English title Money Heist as bland. In a scathing review, Pauline Bach of the British magazine New Statesman questioned the global hype of the series, saying that it was full of plot holes, cliched slow motions, corny love stories and gratuitous sex scenes, before continuing to add that the music is pompous, the voice-over irritating, and it's terribly edited. John Doyle of the Globe and Mail praised parts 1 and 2 for the heist genre subversions. He also said that the series could be deliciously melodramatic at times with outrageous twists and much passion like a telenovela. Jennifer Kishan Armstrong of the BBC saw the series' true appeal in the interpersonal dramas emerging through the heist between the beautiful robbers, their beautiful hostages, and the beautiful authorities trying to negotiate with them. David Hugendick of Die Zeit found the series sometimes a bit sentimental, a little cartoonsk, and the drama sometimes too telenovela-like, but all with a good sense for timing and spectacle. Review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes gave Part 3 an approval rating of 100% based on 12 reviews, with an average rating of 7/10. The site's critical consensus reads, "An audacious plan told in a non-linear fashion keeps the third installment moving as Money Heist refocuses on the relations between its beloved characters." While lauding the technical achievements, Javier Zurro of El Español described the third part as first-class entertainment that was unable to transcend its roots and lacked novelty. He felt unaffected by the internal drama between the characters and specifically, disliked Tokyo's narration for its hollowness. Álex Jiménez of Spanish newspaper ABC found Part 3 mostly succeeding in its attempts to reinvent the show and stay fresh. Ewan Ferguson of The Guardian recommended watching Part 3, as it's still a glorious Peaky Blinders, just with tapas and subtitles, while Pierre Sola Gimferrer of La Vanguardia found that the number of plot holes in Part 3 could only be endured with constant suspension of disbelief. Though entertained, Alfonso Rivadeneira Garcia of Peruvian newspaper El Comercio said the show does what it does best, pretend to be the most intelligent boy in class when, in fact, it is only the clevers. After the move to Netflix, the series remained the most followed series on Netflix for 6 consecutive weeks and became one of the most popular series on IMDb. It regularly trended on Twitter worldwide, largely because celebrities commented on it, such as football players Neymar and Mark Bartra, American singer Romeo Santos, and author Stephen King. While users flooded social networks with media of themselves wearing the robber's outfit, the robbers' costumes were worn at the Rio Carnival, and Dali icons were shown on huge banners in Saudi Arabia football stadiums. Real footage of these events would later be shown in Part 3 as a tribute to the show's international success. The Musée Grevin in Paris added statues of the robbers to its wax museum in summer 2018. The show's iconography was used prominently by third parties for advertising, sports presentations, and in porn. Although the show's first 2 parts were popular, the domestic market in Spain failed to convince Antena 3 to continue the series, and it was shelved until international response escalated to the point where the cast and crew were called back for another 2 seasons. There have also been negative responses to the influence of the show. In numerous incidents, real heist men wore the show's red costumes and dolly masks in their attacks or copied the fictional robbers' infiltration plans. The robbers' costumes were banned at the 2019 Limassol Carnival Festival as a security measure as a result. The series was used in an attack on YouTube, when hackers removed the most played song in the platform's history, Despacito, and left an image of the show instead. Spanish newspaper El Mundo saw the public response as a reflection of the climate of global disenchantment where the robbers represent the perfect antiheroes, and the New Statesman explained the show's resonance with international audiences as coming from the social and economic tensions it depicts, and because of the utopian escape it offers. Viewer response was especially high in Mediterranean Europe and the Latin world, in particular Spain, Italy, France, Portugal, Brazil, Chile, and Argentina, so Spanish as a common language did not appear to be a unifying reason for the show's success. Writer Javier Gomez Santander and actor Pedro Alonso, Berlin, rather argued that the Latin world used to feel at the periphery of global importance, but a new sentiment was coming that Spain could compete with the global players in terms of media production levels and give the rest of the world a voice. Netflix partnered with the video game Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege for an in-game event, where hostages on the bank map wore Money Heist outfits. Outfits for 2 in-game characters were purchasable and the music in the background during the heist was Bella Ciao. The series is one of 2 Spanish-language TV series to be featured in TV Time's Top 50 Most Followed TV Shows Ever, currently being the 5th most followed series on the platform. So, part of quarantine that has made me not completely lose my mind is the amount of new content available to my family thanks to streaming services. It's nice to be able to scroll through a variety of options and find something new to spend time watching with your family. One of these new shows would be La Casa de Papel, or Money Heist, a Spanish heist drama that focuses on a group of misfits who work together to basically perform one of the biggest robberies ever at the Royal Mint in Spain. Personally, I think these types of stories are still fascinating and entertaining, whether or not we have seen them fairly consistently. I'll preface this with what I especially learned after experiencing Parasite: watch the subtitles, don't dub over the actors' voices. We initially tried dubbing just to test it out, and it completely ruins the whole vibe. The language, in my opinion, obviously is much more genuine and important in a narrative sense. The story isn't meant to be Americanized, and by trying to dub English over it, you would be ruining what the story stands for as a whole. When people complain about subtitles, it really irks me because it just comes off selfish and tone-deaf. Anyway, Money Heist is seriously a good time. It started a little slow in my opinion, and I won't give too much away, but by the end we were all literally falling off our chairs. The whole cops v robbers visual is a staple, but here it is nuanced because we learn the 2 factions are more connected than we originally saw. The especially stress-inducing relationship between the professor and Detective Murillo takes the spotlight for me because the audience is aware he is double-crossing her basically, but it is a time bomb as to if she finds out herself. If any of you enjoyed Inception or Breaking Bad, I think you'd enjoy this because there are plenty of mind games and anxious moments as well as developed and cohesive plot lines. This is only part 1, but I am very much looking forward to what comes next because this group of people are so complicated and interesting. Rating: I missed the whole Money Heist phenomenon. My dental hygienist, of all people, was the one who first brought it to my attention, and seeing as how the series only spanned 48 episodes, I figured, why not? Money Heist is in 5 parts, the first heist spans parts 1 and 2, while the second heist covers parts 3 to 5. As you may have guessed, the second heist is longer, which is the most significant negative I had with the series. The plot in the second heist didn't warrant that extra length. Especially unnecessary was the length of flashbacks to explain Berlin's relationship with his son or how the gang got the big ass pump for the second heist. It wasn't necessary. Nor did I need to see pieces like Tokyo going to the professor's house after their initial meeting or the professor, Berlin, and Raphael having lunch together. It felt unnecessary. It would have been better if they had kept the second heist the same length as the first. I also don't get the love that the Berlin character got. Sure, Pedro Alonso was charismatic in the role, and there was also some charm to the character. However, Berlin was a lunatic, basically being accused of rape, ruining his brother's plans on numerous occasions, and stabbing a man repeatedly for laughing at his bow tie. While none of the gang were saints, his behavior was amongst the worst. Also, head-scratching were the actions of Palermo and Arturo at times. Palermo let a dangerous security guard loose simply because the gang overthrew his leadership when he was going to surrender to the cops anyway, hardly reason to get that upset. The worst, though, was Arturo's sexual assault of a drugged Amanda. There was no reason for that, and it had no payoff, did not advance either character and was forgotten afterwards after being mentioned in one scene. That's the negatives, the positives are many. Each character, even a few of the ones I mentioned earlier, was amazingly realized. That's partly due to the terrific writing and, in part, to the caliber of the cast. Tokyo, Berlin, Denver, Rio, Moscow, Helsinki, Nairobi, Lisbon, Stockholm, Bogota, Marseille, Manila, Tamayo, Sierra, and of course, the professor, all so richly realized. Even secondary characters like Benjamin and Antoninses are so damn good. It was a fantastic marriage of performance and script. To give you an idea, I spent time in the second half off the couch, on my feet, shouting at the television. When you get me to that degree, that's excellence. My favorite character, though, was Stockholm. From the moment I saw Esther Acebo, I knew I would care deeply about her character. Acebo has an incredible ability to show fear, vulnerability, desire, love, determination, and intensity, making her performance feel the most three-dimensional to me. At all times in the series, I wanted her to be safe. I desperately wanted her to be happy with Denver, a rarity as I usually don't care about most romantic relationships in movies or television nowadays. The action is excellent, especially in parts 3 to 5. The first heist has little action and is more of a cat and mouse game with evolving interpersonal stories, but the second heist is balls to the wall, with some of the most impressive gun battles I can remember. Whoever designed those action scenes deserves accolades. I was on the edge of my seat, jaw dropped as I saw the number of bullets and damage. They also blew up the frigging roof of a bank. How many times have you seen that happen? The plots kept me guessing. While at times it felt fake to how prescient the professor seemed to be, the story got me several times. For the first heist, I had never seen such an ingenious plan before, and the plan's genius immediately put me on the crook's side. I find the whole idea of the criminal that you cheer for tired at this point, as everyone seems to try it, but this one got me hooked and never let me go. While the second heist wasn't as brilliant as the first one, which is to be expected, it was still damn good. Both heists give you twists and turns that you would never expect, fraught with danger, high emotion, moves, and counter moves. Despite its flaws, it's still one of the best written series I've seen in a long time. I am extremely tough on television series nowadays. I am sometimes done by the season's second episode, Looking at You, Sandman, and Haunting of Hill House. I couldn't wait to get to the next episode of Money Heist, and even with my gripes, they're minor compared to how great the series is. If you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it. The warts are what they are, but the high points are incredibly high. The main part of the show was obviously about the heist. Season 1 focuses on Sergio Marquina, aka the professor, who gathers a group of robbers and experts for a well-planned heist into the Royal Mint of Spain. All the members go by nicknames of famous cities around the world and do not divulge any details about each other. Each member plays a crucial role in order for the execution of the heist, which I will explain later. The main idea of the heist was to ambush a vehicle that is carrying paper refills to the mint and take over the place. Once all the hostages, including a VIP hostage, the daughter of the British ambassador, Alison Parker, have been captured, the hostages and the robbers dress up in red jumpsuits and dolly masks. The hostages are provided with fake guns while the robbers enter with a strong armory of weapons bought from the dark web. Due to this, the police are unable to identify who is who and stalls on breaking into the mint. All mobile phones are cut, and the gang communicate with the professor, the only member outside, via analog telephone lines that they have set up from inside the mint. The aim of the heist was to print their own money, 2.4 billion of it, and the team manages to print €978 million towards the end of the show, which they have split amongst themselves. All through the heist, a group of hostages were made to build a tunnel which the police believed to be their escape route, only for the actual escape to be another tunnel via a safe in the mint that the team secretly build and escapes. The origins of tie route are a little unclear to me. A scene in the show mentions how it's already there and needs to dig out, but I'm just going to assume it was really good planning. Although the heist as it is, summarizes to this, there were many other events surrounding the characters as well. The professor was the only person in the gang who was actually outside while the heist was going on. He uses a voice modifier and negotiates with the police headed by Raquel Murillo alongside Colonel Prieto, head of police Suarez, her colleague Angel, her ex-husband, and forensics expert, Alberto, amongst others. Aside from that, the professor had adopted an identity called Sergio to get close to Raquel and the others in the police to find out more information on how much they knew about the heist. His alibi was that he was a man developing cider as per his father's dream, when in reality it was his father's idea to rob the mint and print their own money, something he claims the government does all the time to pocket the rich. Although the heist in itself was meticulously planned, there was a lot of risky impromptu action that the professor took, going to junkyard to destroy a car, threatening the junkyard owner over police radio and having his fingerprints revealed, leaking Berlin's identity, setting up the home in Toledo with an awful amount of false leads, stealing Berlin's pharmacy records from Toledo, bugging Angel and spying on their conversation, attempting to kill Raquel's mother to not lose his identity, provoking Alberto as an excuse to knock him out to destroy critical evidence, amongst others. Of course, the one action the professor never fathomed was falling in love with Raquel as he approached her for more information on the heist, so much so that he wastes a lot of time bound in the house in Toledo telling her the entire truth when he could have easily disarmed her, as well as letting her go even she had found the location of his hangar and the escape route for the heist. Eventually Raquel sides with the gang and the professor and her reunite in Palawan Island in the Philippines. When the team joined to plan for the heist, the professor had many rules, one of which was to not have any personal relationships. That kind of went down the drain, especially with Tokyo and Rio, who became intensely attracted to each other. This caused a problem from the beginning of the heist when Tokyo attacked some police officers when she, though Rio, got shot, and the professor's biggest rule is that there should be no casualties. Tokyo and Rio have their moments and are quite close. But they also get tested when Tokyo acts rashly after Rio grows closer to Allison Parker, or when Rio is tempted to give in to the police. Things get pretty bad where Tokyo is abandoned by Berlin to be caught by the police as well. Rio is mad and tries to revolt, only to change at the last minute when he realizes the professor freed Tokyo. At the end of the show, the two have proclaimed their feelings during a shootout and have set out to the free world, hopefully, together. Berlin, an experienced jewelry thief and the professor's brother, is the leader of the heist. He's quite a narcissist and takes the plan above everything else. However, his actions, especially when Denver was ordered to kill Monica, isn't taken lightly and is thrown out as a leader for some time until he takes the reins back. Berlin also forms an abusive relationship with the hostage, Ariadna, believing it to be love. He was severely affected when the police leaked news about him to be trafficking underage girls, which he disproves when the press are allowed to enter the mint during the heist. Unfortunately, he was suffering from a degenerative disease and decides to sacrifice himself to let the team have enough time to escape. In the final moments of the heist, the beginning of the heist featured two important hostages, Arturo and Monica Gatsambad, his secretary. The two were having an affair and Monica was pregnant, something Arturo was not happy about moments before the heist. As the heist progresses, Monica tries sneaking a mobile phone and is caught by Berlin to be killed by Denver. Denver pities her and just shoots her in the leg and takes care of secretly. By the time Berlin finds out, he doesn't take it much to heart with all the things that happened, and Denver and Monica fall in love. Yes, it is the middle of the biggest ever heist, but the two manage to have their ups and downs, only for Monica to side with the gang in a crucial moment. She decides to pick the name of Stockholm, as the rest of the gang suspected she had Stockholm Syndrome, and not love, and escapes the heist with Denver, pregnant. Arturo, meanwhile, was our comedic relief throughout the entire series as he gets shot by the police and surgeons are ushered in. His love is tested and Monica eventually realizes what he felt, which drove her more to Denver. Arturo, despite being at the sharp observation of the gang, tried many attempts to escape and even succeeded to have a number of hostages escape too, but for the gang he was just a pain that they had to strap with fake bombs to just make him stay still and not instigate the other hostages. He is one of the hostages forced to go down the fake exit as well, which is where we see him last. Moscow is Denver's father, and throughout the show Denver was convinced his mother left him and his father. Towards the end of the heist, as Moscow tries to talk him out of Monica, he reveals it was him who left his mother, who was a drug addict in the streets, and left. Denver is initial. Nairobi is the expert of counterfeit money in the group and the one responsible for the actual printing and verification of the bills. She is revealed to have a son she lost when arrested when selling drugs, only for him to be sent a foster home. Her dream is to take him back once she has enough money to give him a good life. During the heist, Nairobi was mostly the stable one, emotionally, and trusted the professor even in doubtful situations. She even led the movement to take down Berlin and lead, only for her to give it back to him later. Towards the end of the heist, the police were mostly always thwarted by the insanely detailed plan the gang had come up with. They had tried all sort of things and had their falls when the news they leaked about Berlin was found to be false by the press, or when the professor leaked an audio of them asking to return just Allison Parker instead of a number of other hostages. Each time they come close to catching some detail, the professor gets ahead of them. Eventually Raquel herself became their enemy. Angel, who did find the truth early on, met with an accident and did not wake up until the very end, to not reveal any details, seeing Raquel get arrested. The police also involve Alberto, Raquel's abusive ex-husband, who got knocked out and brought the professor to the police. There are of course a number of other hostages in the series, but the prime ones are namely Allison Parker, who was an important hostage who tried to escape a lot, but by the end of the heist her character didn't have much to provide to the plot of the series. There's also Mercedes, the teacher of the students who visited the mint, Torres, who worked with Nairobi to print the money, and other hostages who escaped earlier on. Out of all this, one hostage is to be noted, and that's Ariadna, who gives into to Berlin and is raped fearing her safety. Although she was offered an escape and his money, he learns how much he despises her, and keeps her beside him till he dies shooting down the police. If we are to think about Money Heist, the phenomenon, we have to give it into this original season. Initially an average performance in their homeland, the show exploded across the world, making its next seasons even more amped up. What did I like? The meticulousness and the layers to the professor's plan. It was evident the time he spent to learn every inch and possibility, which made us fall in love with the plan and the various possibilities they predicted and executed during the time of the heist. It's also very exciting to see how he covers up the problems he did not fathom, as well, as narrow as the escapes were. Another reason I think the show was so loved, was because of the characters. They're all basically a group of underdogs that we always root for, even though they're robbing a mint. They all have diverse and well-written characteristics and character growths, and are crucial not just in their role in the heist but the growth of the plot as well. There was very little that I disliked. But I did find the police a tad bit too slow at times. Sure, this is something they haven't come at before, but certain things like letting a huge truck drive past the confirmed hangar location when they knew they would be transporting nearly €1 billion and other instances made me wonder a little. But I decided to ignore them, because like everyone else I ended up rooting for the gang and the heist too. It recently came to my attention that there is a show called Money Heist on Netflix. It's from Spain, there are 4 seasons, and it's about, don't even try to guess, you won't come close, a group of people heisting money. It's hugely popular across the world, to the extent that it became the most watched non-English series in the history of Netflix in 2018, and it's just now making its way to American latecomers like me. Quick side note, you can watch the show with Spanish subtitles, or you can try out a dubbed English version. Until I read this Times story, I had no idea dubbing was so popular worldwide, since it always seemed like a jokey relic to me, and even less idea that Netflix was trying to make it happen in America, since viewers are less inclined to watch a subtitled show that requires total focus. I gave dubbing a go for about 3 minutes, and I'm here to report that it's a heinous sacrilege and I don't remotely recommend it. Finally, something Americans know best. But anyway, it's there if you want it. After watching the first season, which, fair warning, doesn't resolve the main heist, I am here to report that the show is replete with crime cliches, and yet somehow I mean that as a compliment. There are plenty of ways to be cliché and just outright bad, and in fact that's the most common result. Gangs of London, another recent crime show, succumbed to a violence fetish that diminished and eventually erased any joy you might experience from the story. Other shows fall into cliched patterns without realizing exactly why cliches exist in the first place, and hit certain required beats without packing any punch. Money Heist finds the narrow sweet spot between gratuitous and antiseptic, a slightly more psychological Ocean's Whatever, and a less batshit any Tarantino that successfully maintains dramatic tension but never dips too deeply into the realm of prestige to spoil the fun. At the center of the action are a group of criminals who have been recruited by a man simply known as the Professor to pull off an audacious robbery at the Spanish Mint. A thief on the run who witnessed the love of her life gunned down in a caper gone bad narrates the action for us, which is a bit of a strange choice since the storytelling jumps between all perspectives. Her name, or at least her chosen name, is Tokyo, played with alternating ferocity and kindness by Úrsula Corberó. Her co-conspirators also choose major cities for their noms de guerre, from Helsinki to Nairobi to Denver, but from this vague background we learn bits and pieces throughout the season. If not fully fleshed, these characters at least become kind of fleshed, which is plenty to give weight to their actions within the main drama. On the flip side, you've got Raquel Murillo, Itziar Ituno, in a standout role, a police inspector tasked with negotiating some kind of resolution with the hostages while paired with a team that has absolutely no clue what the robbers intend. She's a victim of domestic violence, a plot point which I'm relieved to tell you is dealt with delicately, whose child lives with her ill mother, and lives a life of compounding career and personal stress. Eventually, the professor conspires to make her acquaintance in real life, at which point things go truly bonkers, and nothing more can be said on that front without major spoilers. The main attribute of this show is that it's extremely enjoyable on a visceral level without requiring a ton of emotional engagement. That might seem like damning with faint praise, but it's actually pretty difficult to pull off. We've been so littered with content throughout our lives, and especially in the last decade, that even the dimmest viewer is savvy enough to spot the predictable beats when they happen. To traverse this well-trodden ground while still being compelling and occasionally surprising is no mean feat, and Money Heist takes this act to expert heights. People mainly use the term guilty pleasure to mean trash TV, but there's a level above that at which a certain class of entertainment exists that is definitely not trash, but that knows itself incredibly well and isn't necessarily striving for artistic greatness. It's entertainment without whatever negative connotations exist, just a solid, workmanlike drama that never overextends, and saves its moments of flair for where it really matters. So yes, Money Heist paints with broad strokes. But they're good, sure strokes, and the final product is almost ridiculously watchable. The story is inventive, and while it does that thing where it runs a little too long to stay tethered to reality in all aspects, I do think 10 episodes for the first season would have been plenty. It never strays to the breaking point even during the twistiest twists. Ditto for the characters, who are either sadistic, anxious, defiant, or sweet in the broadest of ways, but who turn in such good performances that it doesn't matter you're along for their ride. I submit that there is a place of honor for shows like these, especially in the already godforsaken year 2021, when my brain, at least, has been fried to the point that I would rather suffer various forms of physical torture than sit through a single episode of a very good but very draining prestige drama like, say, Mad Men. Simplicity done well is satisfying in the best of times, and a treasure in whatever you call our current age. Money Heist will not rock your television world, and you probably won't remember it in 5 years, but for now it will pass the hours and make you forget whatever you want to forget in a protective mist of good, solid crime drama. At this point, I'll take that over just about anything, and in lieu of real-life deliverance from our various plagues, entertainment of this caliber is a terrific substitute. It can't carry you away forever, but it can carry you away. High school is a seminal time in all our lives, for better or worse, and the best TV shows about high school capture all that is wonderful, beautiful, and unbearable about these formative years. Our high school years begin at the brink of adolescence and end on the cusp of adulthood. It's a time ripe with drama, tears, best friends, and breakups. For decades, television has endeavored to capture these years of great growth, raging hormones, and first loves. With over 69 million views worldwide, the Netflix series Money Heist is filled with excitement and sadness, leaving viewers wondering what could happen in the next episode or season. Money Heist first aired on Spanish television in 2017 and has become the most watched non-English language series on Netflix. It is a 5-season drama and thriller series that is compelling, adventurous, and climatic. The story follows a group of 8 thieves as they execute an 11-day heist in the Royal Mint of Spain. While the 8 thieves kidnap and lock themselves in the building, they face many challenges to stay alive and find a way to steal the precious gold. The series has an addictive dynamic that makes it difficult for viewers to press pause. The plot draws from similar heist movies such as Ocean's 8, The Italian Job, and several other crime and drama films. The thieves holding the hostages in the bank have a sympathetic side and appear more compassionate than typical thieves. Although the plot centers on a heist, the show has a variety of political themes such as modern-day resistance, such as Spain being a pluralistic democracy, and the importance of recognizing their employment process. The show was purchased by Netflix and added to its international repertoire, with the original 15 episodes recut into 22 shorter episodes. It quickly became Netflix's most popular show in 6 countries: France, Italy, Chile, Portugal, Brazil, and Argentina. In Season 1, the audience could feel as if they could form ties with the characters because of the deep dive into each of their backgrounds and the hardships that they faced. Moreover, viewers was given a lot of information in certain scenes while other moments were left for interpretation. This contrast created anticipation that made it hard for viewers to stop watching. However, in Season 2, the heist still takes place in the Royal Mint of Spain after a long, in-depth season prior in the same setting. Director Álex Pina originally developed the story as a work of fiction to try something new in the film industry. This was not the first series that Pina directed. Prior to Money Heist, she had produced 5 films, all of which were filled with drama, romance, and comedy. Money Heist is one of the only series that is scripted during production rather than typical series that are created first and then shot. As a result, neither the cast nor the crew knows what they'll be shooting the following day. This makes the show even more special than it already is. The show's evolutionary impact on real-world protests is what makes it unique and ultimately inspiring. In the series, citizens crowd the streets around the Royal Mint and the Bank of Spain, chanting sympathy for the thieves and condemning the government's brutality. Protesters in nations such as Lebanon, Iraq, and France, among others, have used motifs such as camaraderie, defiance, and resistance in their fights for freedom, police abolition, anti-authoritarianism, and anti-capitalism. In every season, the show uses cliffhangers to entice viewers to return. The series brilliantly blends emotions and informative details to keep the viewer engaged. Money Heist has depth with meaning and offers real-world, relatable problems. Watching a show in a different language has been encouraging and engaging because it allows viewers to expand their knowledge while still being entertained. Learning not to judge a person based on their actions is a crucial lesson that this show can teach others. I started watching Money Heist purely due to peer pressure. All my friends during the 2020 lockdown were watching it and raving about it. Unable to join in the discussions, I felt a bit left out and on a whim started to watch it. It was definitely love at first sight. No, not with the series. With the Ahem professor. Had I ever had such a professor in my life, I would have been the best student ever. He has that impeccable quality which makes women go weak in the knees. He is handsome of course, but not in that in-your-face handsome, but in a sweet unknowingly kind of way handsome. The shy handsome. His demeanor, together with that gaze, those seemingly old-fashioned but oh so sexy glasses, his dialogue delivery and his brilliant mind make him irresistibly likable. So much so that for the entire duration of the heist you actually are rooting for him and his team. As the name explained, the context of the series was pretty much known. But what surprised me was that we jumped right into it from the first episode itself. I wanted to see at least the first 2 to 3 episodes dedicated to the preparation. But of course thankfully the preparation part is captured in flashbacks in subsequent episodes. The best part of the MH is the names or aliases given to the participants of the heists, chosen by themselves and based on countries. These names are now so popular that they are known through them both in real and real life. Also the choice of the heist outfits and the Salvador Dali mask add wonderfully to the resistance theme of the series. Salvador was a major participant of the Surrealist movement in the early 20th century. Surrealist movements have been often associated with rebellion. So, here our heist heroes are a symbol for revolution, and showing their rebellion via their get-up. The heist in itself is no cakewalk and many things so out of plan. Tensions run high, misunderstandings develop, cracks begin to appear among the team. Few oversmart hostages try various strategies to escape, a certain Mr. Irritating Arturo. This even leads to some captures by the police. Professor, who is out the Royal Mint, has his own set of troubles. Apart from keeping a close eye on his team, he is also responsible for cleaning up some mess left behind and also confusing/seducing the lead investigator and her team, who are beginning to uncover some secrets. Whilst he is away doing stuff and also getting caught, his absence and silence turn things worse for the robbers. But towards the end, Rain is back in Professor's hand, things get heated up. There is just too much tension to finish up the task and escape. The team does manage to pull off the mighty heist, albeit not in the same scale as anticipated and with a lot of tear-jerking sacrifices. The entire series will keep you on your toes. You will be tense, have a high heartbeat, get an adrenaline rush and at times cry out. There's entertainment and then there's Money Heist. A masterpiece. Money Heist, also known as La Casa de Papel, is one of the most popular foreign language series to grace Netflix. The Spanish language program, also available as a dubbed version for various nationalities, follows a group of robbers in their quest to steal a great fortune from the Royal Mint of Spain. It is very much an ensemble piece, commencing by focusing on the character of Tokyo, portrayed by Úrsula Corberó, who is quite a popular actor and model in Spain, and then widening out to study the eccentric and calculating mix of characters who range in their levels of moral ambiguity. The series wastes no time in getting to the robbery, immediately screaming onto screens with an action-packed first episode that captures the attention and implements enough style and excitement to enthrall. The stakes are high, and the scheme is audacious. The visually striking masks and a neat theme tune, yes, a theme tune is personally rewarding because too many shows go without them in the modern climate, manage to convince viewers this should be worth watching. It does not feel like the heist could last too long, but by the end of the first series it is still going and, somehow, it manages to maintain its interest thanks to numerous exciting twists and turns. There will not be reviews for each season, however one can assume the second season shall continue to take place inside the Mint and follow the next stage of the robber's journey. Leading the operation is the Professor, who is the most interesting member of the lead crew. At the start of the season, it looks like he has everything under control, but by the conclusion, he is the one who stands the most chance of threatening the success of the heist. Unlike many of the characters inside the Mint itself, he is not a bad person and does not wish to resort to any form of violence to get the job done. His awkward charisma contrasts well with his masterful intelligence and makes him a wonderful variation to the, often overly, confident and formidable nature of the robbers themselves. Although the narrative within the Mint is the primary focus, what takes place outside of it is superior. The Professor's unorthodox relationship with the police negotiator, Raquel, always makes events interesting, especially as he begins to lose grip of his control over events while he falls in love with the woman who is investigating him. This side of the narrative very much plays out like a cat and mouse chase, with a difference, managing to escape from tedious conventionality with this romance that is in some parts suffered from the often unconvincing relationship between Tokyo and Rio. The character work in the series is often mixed, sometimes appearing as the second most important element after the high-octane storyline, but often coming into prominence during the program's many flashback sequences. Certain characters are more focused on than others, and sometimes that means the support we are meant to feel towards the ensemble is slightly misplaced. Overall, though, these characters are strong enough to keep the program afloat, especially with psychopathic Berlin and zany Nairobi. The second half of the season is stronger than the first because of tighter pacing and a better gauge of what makes these characters tick, and becomes incredibly bingeable by the final few episodes. The development of the hostages is arguably considerably weaker than that of the robbers though, but that was to be expected. The show's otherwise simplistic fashion is enriched by nonlinear elements such as flashbacks and reveals which delve deeper into our characters and provide their true motivations for the heists. Some of these elements may be predictable while others are refreshingly surprising, especially Berlin's sympathetic motives for wishing to partake in the proceedings. Many of these are about the female character's salacious attempts to seduce the professor, which are a little embarrassing. The series is far from perfect. Some of the dialogue is a little poor, and the character's obsession with sex is often a downfall, as it is with many shows in the modern age, which makes the writers come across as horny and immature. There are also too many plot conveniences introduced with the sole purpose of moving the plot in a certain direction, often feeling unnatural even if they do spice up the narrative. Plot armor is also a problem, and there are countless occasions of characters seemingly being killed off in a cliffhanger ending before it being revealed that is not the case: Rio, Monica, Arturo, and Oslo, and they are indeed still alive. After falling in love with Money Heist, the Netflix blockbuster, I called many of my friends in the film industry and film media in Iran and in Europe to find out if they share my passion towards the series. I was not surprised when most of them agreed with me on Money Heist's uniqueness and beauty. It has been almost over 35 years that I am writing about movies and TV series, and only God knows how many TV series I have watched over my lifetime. I usually watch between 2 to 5 episodes of TV shows every day, but I can say that to me Money Heist is the best TV series of all times. At least so far. There are many in the film and TV industry that believe Netflix presents a threat to the future of movie and TV productions. But I think what Netflix has done so far is helping good international artists get the same opportunity in the world market as a US artist. If it wasn't for Netflix, TV series such as Money Heist would never get a chance to be seen by millions of viewers. If it wasn't for Netflix, Money Heist could have limited its success to the European market only, and possibly would have not gone beyond the second season. Money Heist, with the Spanish title of La Casa de Papel, The Paper Castle, is a crime drama series that was created by Álex Pina. The series follows the professor played by Álvaro Morte. Professor has plans for 2 money heists, one on the Royal Mint of Spain and the other one on the Bank of Spain. The main characters in the series are named after the different cities in different countries in order to keep their real names secret. This gives a humoristic touch to the whole film. Characters are amazingly developed, and just after one episode you start to know them like a family member. You know how they think and how they behave, and you really care about them. I'm sure I don't have to go on telling the story of the series for you, as I am certain that many of you have already watched all the 5 seasons. What makes Money Heist exceptional is attaching a revolutionary act of the gang that's supposed to be criminals. Money Heist directors and creators reveal the authorities' criminal acts, and that is the main reason for what makes the professor and his gang heroes. Money Heist has become a cult series, and there are millions of people around the world that are following the future plans of Netflix for future seasons of this series. Today I decided to share my thoughts and experience about one of the best movie in the world. The name of the movie is Money Heist. Basically, It is divided into 5 seasons and the story is outstanding in each season. Recently, a few days ago we all friends gathered at my house, so we thought why not watch a movie. At first, we all thought about which movie to put, then after thinking a lot, the name of the movie I recommended was Money Heist because I've heard a lot about this movie, so we decided to watch the first season of Money Heist. Let me first tell you a short summary of the movie. In the first season it was shown a guy named Professor gathers a team around him to rob a bank in Spain. The name of the team members were Berlin, Denver, Oslo, Tokyo, Rio, Helsinki, Nairobi, and Moscow. The professor is the mastermind of this team and he named all the team members with capital cities of different countries. The professor makes a plan of robbery. He sends all his team members inside the Bank of Spain named Royal Mint and he himself was outside controlling the whole plan. The first season was very interesting and long too, and the professor was very clever and sharp in making of the plans. I was inspired by the character of Berlin because he talks very politely and his attitude and experience was outstanding. The professor had already made 2 or 3 plans that if the police do this, you should follow plan A, and if the police do something else, then you should take plan B. Inside the Royal Mint the team members were focused on their plan. Their aim was to print as many euros as they could. So they give the duty to the person who was in charge of printing notes inside the bank to print as many euros as possible. In the end, their plan succeeded and they got out of there safely, and all the team members bought islands for themselves at different places, but unfortunately, the in charge of the robbery team, whose name was Berlin, who was put in charge by the professor, died in this mission. He gave his life to save his team members so that they could get out of the Royal Mint safely. I only watched season 1 until now, so I recommend you guys to watch the series because it's so much interesting, especially, the first season is outstanding. From tonight I will start watching the season 2 because I can't wait to watch it. I think most of you guys have heard about this series and even most of you guys watched this movie, so I would be glad to see your comments below about this wonderful series. I'm so much in a hurry to watch the next season, and I'm thinking that what might happen in the next season, but one thing is very heartbreaking, that my favorite character Berlin died in the very first season, but the hero professor is still alive. You've rewatched The Wire, seen every episode of Friends at least twice, and are starting to wonder if this is what it feels like to complete Netflix. But wait, there's a world-changing, cultural juggernaut of a TV show that, while hugely popular, you may well have missed. This week, Money Heist, or, to use its Spanish title, La Casa de Papel, begins another 8-episode run on Netflix, where it is the streaming giant's most watched non-English language show worldwide. The first season of the full-throttle thriller saw its gang, all code-named after major cities and memorably clad in revolutionary red overalls and Salvador Dali masks, break into the Royal Mint of Spain, taking 67 people hostage and literally printing money, 2.4 billion euros, to be exact. It's fair to say that the plot doesn't quite go to plan, though it does result in 3 raunchy romances and an island escape. Season 3, an even wilder ride, proved that for this gang loyalty is as much a motivation as loot. The show's Madrid-based creator, Álex Pina, believes the latest season has the power to infuse some oxygen into this disturbing climate. It is a brutal journey to the limit, like a ride on a vertiginous roller coaster. I can promise the audience will not think of COVID-19 while watching it. His previous show, the women's prison drama Locked Up, is, along with teen thriller Elite and the 1940s set mystery High Seas, part of a wave of Spanish dramas that have commanded large international audiences in recent years, all in part because of Netflix. Yet Money Heist is on a different scale. Within months of arriving on the streaming service in 2017, the thriller had become the single most watched series in countries including France, Italy, Argentina, and Brazil, and its third series, released last year, was watched by 34 million households in its first week alone. Its impact has been huge. Superfans send Pina photographs of tattoos of Tokyo and the professor, and the gang's masks and overalls now rival The Handmaid's Tale bonnet for the most recognizable TV costume of recent years. They were even worn on political protests in Puerto Rico and during a real-life robbery in the French city of Nantes. In Argentina, where the show is particularly beloved, babies have been named after its protagonists. The reasons for Money Heist's appeal are obvious but also strangely ineffable, not least in episodes such as the Season 3 opener, where characters switched between emotional extremes and glamorous locations with equally delirious speed. "It's pure rock and roll," says Álvaro Morte, who plays the gang's meticulous mastermind, the professor. "Once you see the first chapter of the show, you are lost in it. It has something different, especially for non-Spanish people," says his co-star Úrsula Corberó. She stars as Tokyo, the gang member whose irrepressible desire to drink rum and dance the salsa with strangers sets a shocking series of events in motion. "We have this way of expressing ourselves, of exchanging our feelings that goes through the screen." Pina agrees that cultural specificity is one of the show's main selling points. "In Money Heist, feelings, fraternity, and love are as important as the plots. A perfect heist, rational and cool, becomes something else when spiced up with Latin emotions. The tragic dynamic between the professor and his love interest cum arresting officer Raquel, Itziar Ituno, is a compelling example of this contrast in action. If there is such a thing as a quintessentially Spanish heist drama, then, this is it. It's not grittily downbeat like its British equivalents or pared back like Scandi crime shows. Rather, says Pina, Money Heist is rooted in Spanish literature's great foundational text, to rise up against the system is reckless and idealistic, it's Don Quixote. Yet I think it's much more Latin than Spanish, more passionate. In that, it differs from the English perfect heist genre, which is cooler, more restrained, more scientific. Restraint has hardly been necessary for Pina and his writing team, since Netflix once again upped the show's budget for the new season, enabling an exciting range of high-octane stunts and ever more lavish production values. In July, Variety estimated the previous season to be Spain's biggest budgeted series per episode ever. According to Corberó, Money Heist's passionate characters can be unpredictable even for their co-creators. If, by this time, we didn't know our characters well, it would be unforgivable, she says. But the script writers still have the ability to surprise us. Indeed, at the end of Season 3, the professor experienced a trauma that, it is strongly hinted in the trailer for Season 4, will lead the usually rational character to behave more erratically. I think characters should always develop and evolve. If they don't, they are flat, says Morte. I used to be the kind of actor that would read a script and I'd think, oh my god. My character would never say that. Now I've changed my mindset. All the characters, especially the professor, still have many things to show. Fan sites are awash with speculation on what exactly that could be. Will he seek bloody revenge on the police? Or descend into madness? There is also a political edge to the series' anti-system philosophy, which is invoked whenever we hear the gang's borrowed anthem, the Italian protest song Bella Ciao. First and foremost, the series is meant to entertain, but an idea runs underneath, explains Pina. Skepticism towards governments, central banks, the system. This notion would not sink in unless it were formulated within an entertaining narrative. The action genre used to be considered shallow and superficial, and social movies as boring. Why not put these two concepts together? Because the 2008 financial crash, which set the scene for Money Heist, was a global event, it's unsurprising that this escapist fable has resonated widely. For Morte, though, the show's impact hit home for him while he was watching the news one evening. On the Mediterranean, an immigrant's boat was trying to reach the Spanish coast. When they were rescued, they started singing Bella Ciao. It's something that will stay with me forever. Despite international acclaim, at the end of 2019, the UK was one of the few territories where the show did not feature in Netflix's top 10. Latecomers would be well advised to catch up fast, though. While Pina won't set an end date, it's clear Money Heist is here for a good time, not a long time. "We're here to tell whatever we need to tell in the shortest way," he says. "We're here to shoot guns at close range, to empty magazines tirelessly. We'd rather the audience switched off the TV with racing hearts than out of boredom. For some reason, we all seem to love series and movies about crimes, and we also tend to root for the villains. So, when a series like Breaking Bad comes out where you could argue that the main character is the villain, the audience just loves it." In this article, we won't be talking about Breaking Bad, nor about any drug dealers. Instead, we'll talk about a faster way to make money, much faster than selling drugs. A good old bank theft, but of course, taking it to the next level. This review might have some spoilers, so beware with this if you haven't watched Money Heist yet. We chose to talk about the first 2 seasons of the show since that's where the first big heist takes place. Throughout these couple of seasons, they make the biggest heist in the history of Spain and maybe even the world. As if robbing a bank wasn't big enough, they take it to the next level, and the professor, the mastermind behind the heist, made a complex plan to execute a heist to the Royal Mint of Spain, La Fábrica Nacional de Moneda y Timber. The professor made an almost flawless plan to make this heist without failure, but there was one thing out of his calculations: emotions. As he falls in love with the chief inspector of the case and the team gets tangled in many issues by their own individual issues. Now, you'd expect that they make a huge plan to get away with the heist. But there's a small issue in the way the story is written. Behind the scenes, when the writers released the original version of the series in Spain, they were literally written episode by episode, basically making it up as it happened. And it kinda shows when you're watching the show, as the plan is practically made out of Deus Ex Machina elements. While it keeps the thrill in the show going, as everything can go wrong in the blink of an eye. However, whenever an issue appeared, it just so happens that it was all within the professor's calculations. And this happens really more often than not, becoming a bit repetitive over time. Still, the show manages to keep you on the edge of your seat most of the time, waiting for the next move, and you actually root for the criminals here. Some relationships emerge in there even within the hostages and the main characters. It's a great show, definitely one of the most interesting shows that Netflix has acquired. It was originally a show just for the Spanish television, and it's a great thing that they bought it to re-edit it and redistribute it throughout the world. It's also important to note that these 2 first seasons are actually just 1 season in the original version. The characters are great, but some of them get to be really annoying, and not in a good way. The constant Deus Ex Machina in the professor's plan makes it feel as if they are never in real danger at some times. But it never makes it less thrilling, of course. It actually feels like watching a high-budget, overly complicated game of chess. Only that there's a heist, a hostage situation, and some fatalities included in there. You should definitely give it a try. However, it all goes downfall after the first 2 seasons, so we highly recommend just leave it there. With Money Heist, La Casa de Papel, Netflix landed a winner. Since its release in 2017, the Spanish-language crime thriller has had all the right twists and turns, but now we get the final twist, and it does not disappoint. It is truly special and rare that a series can keep us engaged throughout 36 episodes spread over 5 parts. The 5th and final part is split into 2 chapters. The first aired in early September, and the second arrived, like an early Christmas present, this past week. Money Heist ends with the same sublime fluidity it initially began with. The last chapter left the team, both outside and inside the bank, in a state of disarray. With the loss of central character Tokyo, Úrsula Corberó, the fabric and minds of all involved were explosively pulled apart, and this new chapter continues just as the last one ended. But, it fires into an overall roller coaster, becoming a more emotive and intense thriller with a depth usually found on the cinema screen. Part of the magic of Money Heist is the clever storytelling and skillful character development, where the anti-hero becomes a lauded figure. That is expanded in this new chapter, and these final episodes are actually the best yet and worth navigating through all that came before for newcomers. It now seems so long since the important imagery of Salvador Dali masks with red jumpsuits. The reason for this is the multitude of storylines being intertwined and paralleled. These layered threads are equally important. The first follows what is happening within the bank itself and explores how relationships and, indeed, minds are breaking down. The second tracks new character, Alicia Sierra, Najwa Nimri, and what is happening outside the bank with the professor, Álvaro Morte. The relationship between both spirals into a necessity for survival. As Sierra has given birth, the professor becomes part superbrain, part carer. It is an explosive dynamic between the two, and the first two episodes focus on them as much as the heist itself. The third and most worthwhile narrative thread is that which happens in the past. This is more than just some backstory, it is essential in order to understand how things unfold in the future. It also brings back one of the most popular characters, the brother of the professor, the psychotic romantic Berlin, Pedro Alonso. He is the one character you do not want to love nor root for, but he is played so exceptionally by Alonso that there is KP escaping his aura. In this chapter we find a more human Berlin, one that can be broken and emotionally hurt and also has that anger which explodes. In truth, you get some of Berlin's best scenes since the original chapters, for obvious reasons. How the story teeters from the past to the present to explain how things happen is nothing new in a thriller, but here, it is simply stylish and the timing is on the money. Other episodes slump slightly during those immersive character developments, but all that seems in the past. The pace is steady throughout, and this is binge-watch gold, which is a problem as you find yourself coming to the end, fueled by the same adrenaline as those on screen. Not to give the overall final twists away, as there are some ambitious and clever surprises in store, but, rest assured, it all acts as fitting tribute to all involved. There is no Sopranos-styled fade to black, and no questions left unanswered. Yes, the creator and executive producer Álex Pina himself has more or less stated they have exhausted the overall franchise through the important character arcs. Ending it here is actually the right thing to do, and proves that this year's Squid Game was not a fluke when it comes to non-English speaking series, though, the same can't be said for Lupin, which burnt out after one season. It is best, then, to leave Money Heist here before it becomes a mundane caricature of itself. Overall, we should just remember it for what it is, and I'm sure it will only benefit from a rewatch. As for Pina's next project, along with Sky Rojo, it should be very interesting, if not very clever. La Casa de Papel, Money Heist, Part 3 was the most watched content on Netflix in 2019 across major European markets, including France, Spain, and Italy, according to information released Monday by the streaming giant. In the UK, however, both Álex Pina's La Casa de Papel and, more curiously, British royal family series The Crown were missing from Netflix's top 10 list, with the most popular release of 2019 being The Disappearance of Madeleine McCann, the true crime documentary about a British girl who went missing during a vacation with her parents in Portugal more than a decade ago. The other local titles included on the UK chart include Ricky Gervais' Afterlife, the David Attenborough-fronted natural history series Our Planet, and the Netflix flagship original Sex Education, which also performed well in the rest of Europe. Stranger Things 3 also showed up in the top 10 across Europe. Martin Scorsese's epic crime drama The Irishman, which is generating Oscar buzz, performed well, making the top 10 list in most of the major European territories. Netflix said the rankings were based on the number of households that watched at least 2 minutes of a film or one episode during the content's first 28 days on the service. Although the charts take into account all movies, series, and documentaries released on the streamer in 2019, including acquired titles, Netflix originals dominated most of the lists across Europe. Among the most popular titles were Michael Bay's action-packed Six Underground, starring Ryan Reynolds, which came in second in the UK, Germany, and Italy, and third in France and Spain, and the medieval fantasy series The Witcher, which was the most watched content on Netflix in Germany. In France and Spain, The Witcher, which stars Henry Cavill, came in second. Apart from Six Underground, other films that drew the most eyeballs in Europe were A Murder Mystery, third in the UK, fourth in Germany and fifth in Italy, and Triple Frontier, fifth in Germany, eighth in France and ninth in Italy. The Irishman came in fourth in the UK, third in Germany and fifth in Italy and Spain. While English-language content dominated the charts in key European markets, in Spain, where Netflix opened a large production hub earlier this year, it was a different scenario. A flurry of Spanish-language series produced by and for the streamer thrived in Spain. Alongside Casa de Papel Part 3, the second season of drama thriller series Elite, the fourth outing for the period series Cable Girls and the mystery show High Seas, as well as the 1960s set drug smuggling drama Hatch made it onto Spain's top 10 chart for series. Spain's overall ranking, meanwhile, included Casa de Papel Part 3, the second season of Elite and the comedy film Despite Everything. In France and Italy, by contrast, only one local title made the cut. France's Family Business and Italy's teen drama Baby took the 10th slot in their respective markets. Netflix completely bungled the name of this Spanish series whose original title is the infinitely cooler La Casa de Papel or The House of Paper. The language barrier is not a real reason to miss out on this bingeable series, as Netflix has offered English audio. Sure, some of the nuances in dialogue are lost in translation, but the translated audio is pretty good, retaining the essentials. Coming to the audience expectations from the done-to-death heist genre, they do give it a slightly different treatment. The stakes in this series are higher than expected, with the gang taking on the government establishment itself. There's personal redemption and growth in characters through tragedy, heartbreak, and other consequences of the human condition. Money Heist revolves around the story of a son avenging his father's death at the hands of the police. Sergio Marquinhos spent his childhood listening to his father narrating tales of adventure to him, not realizing that his dad was the actual protagonist in those stories. When his father dies in the midst of a heist, he decides to take on the social establishment that took the life of his father. He starts his plans early, by not registering his identity from the age of 19, keeping himself off the grid. Adopting his father's grand plan of robbing the Royal Mint of Spain along with his half-brother Andrés de Fonolosa, Sergio designs a foolproof master plan. They together with other like-minded ne'er-do-wells come together for the heist of a lifetime. Money Heist Season 1 starts with the gang training for the most important event of their lives. The professor is seen explaining the rationale behind their quest with his fundamental rules. No blood spilled, no relationships within the team, and no personal details like names. Enter Berlin, Andrés de Fonolosa, Tokyo, Silene Oliveira, Nairobi, Agata Jimenez, Oslo, Dmitry Mostovoy, Helsinki, Mirko Dragic, Moscow, Agustin Ramos, Rio, Miguel Herron, and Denver, Daniel Ramos. What follows is how they complete the heist, even though each rule is gradually broken. Money Heist Season 2 is equally enjoyable as the first, and I'm sure fans of the first series will complete all series until 4. La Casa de Papel has amazing casting, with each actor oozing charm, charisma, and intensity. And it doesn't hurt that most, if not all the central characters also look stunning. The clean-cut and handsome look of Pedro Alonso is a good contrast to the sociopathic and unstable character he plays. Úrsula Corberó, shown below on the right, stunning and sharp features complement her impulsive character nicely. Raquel Murillo, shown above on the far left, played to perfection by Itziar Ituno, sizzles on screen with her caramel tan, and shares great chemistry with Sergio the Professor, played by Álvaro Morte. Rio Miguel Herron, played by Aníbal Cortez, Denver Daniel Ramos, played by Jamie Lorente, also deliver great performances with the other members of the cast. The personas of the heist members are far from one-dimensional, with progressive character development through the series. For example, Sergio's character is that of an analytical thinker, with slight social impairment and shyness. The professor's insecurities and repressed need for love and company lead to a significant character arc for more than one person in the series. Berlin's character displays countless shades of gray throughout the series, with him taking an irreversible shot at redemption along the way. Tokyo sees her self-destructive pattern play out more than once, and Raquel learns to love and trust again. Money Heist serves as a commentary on socio-economic inequality. It shows how the systems we have in place to maintain order don't necessarily benefit all of society. The red jumpsuits worn by the gang in this series represent the color revolution, with similar symbolism at play regarding the masks. The Salvador Dali mask represents the surrealist painter's rebellion against authority and national pride. All throughout this series, the gang targets the government and not individuals or private establishments. The professor talks about how public support is needed for the heist to go smoothly. At one point, Sergio also explains how the money from the mint doesn't go to the people, but the bankers. Despite the violence and slightly graphic nature of the series, it is definitely worth a watch. I personally prefer my heists to be as in The Italian Job, 2003, where violence is not necessary to make a point. But this series is worth enduring such bursts of violence and the slight telenovela feel of the series narrative by Tokyo. You are sure to complete at least one series once you start the first episode. In 2017, Netflix released its biggest non-English franchise at that time with Money Heist. Since then, the original series has ended, but it continued with the first spin-off, Berlin. The spin-off is set before the events of Money Heist, as the titular character died during the events of the series. Berlin premiered in 2023, and it was a huge hit, leading to a second season. Immediately after its May 15th release, Berlin turned into a worldwide sensation, Flix Patrol reports. Berlin and the Lady with an Ermine, as Season 2 is titled, is officially the #1 show globally. In its first day, it reached the top spot in 21 territories, which was enough to score the first spot on Netflix, and doubled its odds on its second day, where it was the #1 show in 44 countries. In the US, it debuted in 10th place. As longtime Money Heist franchise fans remember, the Heist series never featured the characters' names, and, instead, they chose names of popular cities around the world. Berlin was a fan-favorite character thanks to his snark, charisma, and tragic ending. Netflix heard that and gave him his own prequel spin-off in 2023. Season 1, titled Berlin and the Jewels of Paris, followed the longtime thief on a new job to steal millions in diamonds in Paris. He gathered his own team, and eventually, they were successful. In Season 2, they're back for more. In the 8-episode Season 2, the iconic character played by Pedro Alonso returns alongside his new gang, Michelle Jenner, Isabel, who plays Kayla, an expert in electronic engineering, Tristan Ulloa, Farina, is Damien, a philanthropic professor, and Berlin's confidant, Bigona Vargas, Welcome to Eden, is Cameron, a kamikaze who always lives on the edge. Julio Pina Fernandez, Through My Window, plays ROI, Berlin's faithful squire, and Joel Sanchez brings Bruce to life, the relentless man of action in the gang. In Berlin and the Lady with an Ermine, the team has a new master plan that begins with the commission they receive from the Duke of Malaga, to steal Leonardo da Vinci's iconic masterpiece, The Lady with an Ermine. Seville becomes the backdrop for the greatest heist in history, a plan so brilliant it is, in itself, a work of art. As longtime Money Heist franchise fans remember, the Heist series never featured the characters' names, and, instead, they chose names of popular cities around the world. Berlin was a fan-favorite character thanks to his snark, charisma, and tragic ending. Netflix heard that and gave him his own prequel spin-off in 2023. Season 1, titled Berlin and the Jewels of Paris, followed the longtime thief on a new job to steal millions in diamonds in Paris. He gathered his own team, and eventually, they were successful. In Season 2, they're back for more. In the 8-episode Season 2, the iconic character played by Pedro Alonso returns alongside his new gang, Michelle Jenner, Isabel, who plays Kayla, an expert in electronic engineering. Tristan Ulloa, Farina, is Damien, a philanthropic professor and Berlin's confidant. Bigona Vargas, Welcome to Eden, is Cameron, a kamikaze who always lives on the edge. Julio Pina Fernandez, Through My Window, plays Roi, Berlin's faithful squire, and Joel Sanchez brings Bruce to life, the relentless man of action in the gang. In Berlin and the Lady with an Ermine, the team has a new master plan that begins with the commission they receive from the Duke of Malaga, to steal Leonardo da Vinci's iconic masterpiece, The Lady with an Ermine. Seville becomes the backdrop for the greatest heist in history, a plan so brilliant it is, in itself, a work of art. The original series ended in 2021 after 5 seasons, and returned with the spin-off in 2023. However, ahead of Berlin Season 2's release, Netflix confirmed the Money Heist franchise continues. There have been no official details about the new projects, but the streamer is eyeing multiple entries. In 2017, Netflix released its biggest non-English franchise at that time with Money Heist. Since then, the original series has ended, but it continued with the first spin-off, Berlin. The spin-off is set before the events of Money Heist, as the titular character died during the events of the series. Berlin premiered in 2023, and it was a huge hit, leading to a second season. Immediately after its May 15th release, Berlin turned into a worldwide sensation, Flix Patrol reports. Berlin and the Lady with an Ermine, as Season 2 is titled, is officially the #1 show globally. In its first day, it reached the top spot in 21 territories, which was enough to score the first spot on Netflix, and doubled its odds on its second day, where it was the #1 show in 44 countries. In the US, it debuted in 10th place. As longtime Money Heist franchise fans remember, the Heist series never featured the characters' names, and, instead, they chose names of popular cities around the world. Berlin was a fan-favorite character thanks to his snark, charisma, and tragic ending. Netflix heard that and gave him his own prequel spin-off in 2023. Season 1, titled Berlin and the Jewels of Paris, followed the longtime thief on a new job to steal millions in diamonds in Paris. He gathered his own team, and eventually, they were successful. In Season 2, they're back for more. In the 8-episode Season 2, the iconic character played by Pedro Alonso returns alongside his new gang, Michelle Jenner, Isabel, who plays Kayla, an expert in electronic engineering. Tristan Ulloa, Farina, is Damien, a philanthropic professor and Berlin's confidant. Bigona Vargas, Welcome to Eden, is Cameron, a kamikaze who always lives on the edge. Julio Pina Fernandez, Through My Window, plays Roi, Berlin's faithful squire, and Joel Sanchez brings Bruce to life, the relentless man of action in the gang. In Berlin and the Lady with an Ermine, the team has a new master plan that begins with the commission they receive from the Duke of Malaga, to steal Leonardo da Vinci's iconic masterpiece, The Lady with an Ermine. Seville becomes the backdrop for the greatest heist in history, a plan so brilliant it is, in itself, a work of art. The original series ended in 2021 after 5 seasons, and returned with the spin-off in 2023. However, ahead of Berlin Season 2's release, Netflix confirmed the Money Heist franchise continues. There have been no official details about the new projects, but the streamer is eyeing multiple entries. The statement read, "Some stories start with the perfect strike. And this one changed everything." It continued, from the first heist for cash to the most artful robbery of the century, including the assault that put tons of gold from the Bank of Spain on the line, the universe of Money Heist has never stopped growing, evolving, and surprising us. But if there's one thing that's clear, it's that the revolution never ends. From now on, this is mission control for everything in the Money Heist universe. If you want in on the next plan and don't want to miss a single move from the gang, this is the place to be. The statement read, "Some stories start with the perfect strike. And this one changed everything." It continued, from the first heist for cash to the most artful robbery of the century, including the assault that put tons of gold from the Bank of Spain on the line, the universe of Money Heist has never stopped growing, evolving, and surprising us. But if there's one thing that's clear, it's that the revolution never ends. From now on, this is mission control for everything in the Money Heist universe. If you want in on the next plan and don't want to miss a single move from the gang, this is the place to be. Money Heist remains Netflix's second most watched non-English release, just behind Squid Game. Season 4 is in 4th place on Netflix's most popular top 10 with 106 million views, with Season 5 attracting 99.2 million views, and Season 3 80 million views, all within the first 91 days of release. This film, created by Álex Pina, starring Úrsula Corberó, theme music composer Manuel Santisteban, opening theme My Life Is Going On by Cecilia Krull, composers Manuel Santisteban, country of origin Spain, original language Spanish, executive producers Álex Pina, production locations Spain, cinematography Miguel Moito, editors David Pelegrín, camera setup single camera, running time 67 to 77 minutes, production companies Utres Media.